I'd like to ask you after the presentation, if you haven't had time, to please take a minute to notice the changes in our display cabinets for maybe the first time in 12 years or who knows how long. And our guests we have up there. This whole summer, Janet and Lynn Moyer and Jim and Nancy Crownback hauled boxes and boxes out of the upstairs loft, went through them, categorized things. They changed all the display cabinets, not to mention cleaning them and putting new lights in them. And we now have things going on in the cabinets, like, for example, Sweet Memorial Building, school, industry, local businesses. And they have one request, and that is that we take that cabinet right there that has odds and ends in it and do something on the Phoenix Fire. And since we only have 2 items related to the Phoenix Fire that we have in this building, if anybody has anything they would like to donate, we'd be really happy to take it and display it. So, especially photos, she's Janet said. Okay, we still do have copies of the Phoenix book. It's called the Grips book, and it was written in 1902. So it's all about Phoenix before the fire and how glorious it was at one time, how busy it was. And so you might want to get your copy while we still have some left. There's one, where did I just see it? Oh, there's one on the table down there in the corner. Okay. Coming up, October 15th, the Tuesday night of the next month, we are having our last program of the year. It's A Disappearance in Dead Creek. Is that the whole title? Did I get that right? Steve McMahon will be doing it. It's another mystery one, so that should be interesting. And then our last event this year is Saturday, November 23rd. It's our craft show, silent auction, bake sale that we do every year for a fundraiser. And we really hope you'll attend. It's really important to us. There's a lot of money that goes into this building, and we've been buying boxes. As you can see, we still have things behind here that need to be sorted out. Putting lights in all the cabinets and on top of the cabinets to make it better. So we're really looking for your support for the fundraiser. And we do have a donation jar here or there. If anybody minds contributing anything at all, that always helps. So that is that. I was going to make an announcement, but I guess I'm supposed to wait because we may have an interruption to the program tonight, which Jim graciously said would be fine. Can I say anything about it? All right. Right now, during this 3 days, the Association of Public Historians of New York State, they're holding their annual 3-day meeting. And Barb, our historian, usually attends, but she decided not to make the big trip this year. So at the dinner tonight that they're having in Long Island, they will announce that Barb has been the recipient of the, and I gotta read this, Franklin Delano Roosevelt Government Historian Professional Achievement Award.
Wow.
And what do I want to say, professional knitter. And they give out this award in recognition of outstanding career achievement in the practice of public history in New York State. So it's quite an honor. So they might do a Zoom so that we can all hear and see this. Thank you, Jim.
Of course.
letting us interrupt you. So anyway, tonight we do welcome back Jim Papaya. You might remember him, I think 2 years ago you did the Blizzard of 66 here. He's a local author from Fulton. He's written a lot of books. There's some up here, not all of them, but some of them I think. And so he'll have copies of them for sale after the program. And I think, so tonight we learn about the development of the Oswego County Search and Rescue Team. So.
What's that? Okay, thank you. Well, it's good to be back here, and this is a lovely building. There's a good feel to the building here. So people often ask me where I get my ideas for my books, and sometimes, like with the Blizzard of 66, I was a 10-year-old kid living in the country where, snowed in for a week, so that's a pretty strong memory, and that's where that idea came from. And the Nestle book I wrote from Fulton, you smelled it every day when you grew up, but this book came to me in an unusual way, and I'll start my pictures. Whoop. And I apologize, it's a little bit fuzzy, but I participate in a program with the Fulton Library. It's called the Memoir Project. And what we do is we ask people to, in the first couple of years we did it, we just say, write about a memory you have of the city of Fulton or growing up in Fulton or working or going to school. And, we want the memory to be positive. We want your story to be positive. But we would collect those and we made books from it. And the first year I did it, I think it was the first year, but that's okay. We've done 6 books, so it kind of blends all together. But one year a woman said she wanted to write a story about how the local search and rescue team started. And I had heard nothing about it. And once I heard the story, and the memoir was about 4 or 5 pages long. I said, there's a bigger story here than 4 or 5 pages. This is an amazing story. So the idea came from that. And this is just a picture of me working with some of the local authors. I don't know if anybody remembers Marion Stanton. She's on the left there. She was very involved with the library. Vita Shalone sitting down with a paper in her hand. Vita's from Fulton, 97 years old, still writes. I do a writers group she lives at Springside at Seneca Hill. So I get to meet a lot of people, and so I just latched on to the story. I couldn't get the story of the search and rescue team out of my head, and so I knew that was a strong enough indication for me that I wanted to write a book. I don't know, do we have any other authors in the book or people that like to write? But Steve and if you take a topic and you're going to write a book about it, you've got to be pretty committed to it because it takes a long time. So you really want a story that you feel passionate about. And this story is one of the stories that I do feel passionate about. We'll say, unfortunately, the story starts pretty tragically, but what I try to remember is that sometimes from tragedy comes something really good, and that was certainly the case. And here's how it started. In 1971, some of you may remember this, little boy named Douglas Legg from Baldwinsville. His parents had a cottage or a home really in the Adirondacks, and it was a place called, we'll show you a picture of it in a second, and they were vacationing up there in the summer, and he went missing, and they couldn't find him. In 1971, so no cell phones, no internet, no drones, right? And so they didn't know who to call. There wasn't a search and rescue team by any means at that point. They called the local sheriff, or I can't remember the name of the, it was kind of like a sheriff, but a small town official. He called the fire department, and they tried to search, and then word got out. And here's the Syracuse Herald-Journal. It was front page news for days, and people started packing into their car and driving up there to help the search. At one point, there were 1,000 people searching for that boy. And of course, in aftermath, they realized that all those searchers probably made the search more difficult because they're all trampling through there with their footprints and pushing things, and the things that you learn to look for when you search probably got messed up pretty bad by that. The story ends sadly for the boy was never found. In search and rescue, Aaron, correct me if I'm saying this right, but it's a cold case if it's still open. So if they never find the person that they're searching for, it's called a cold case. It remains open. And so in this case of Douglas, I was talking to Steve here, and he said that, over the years, people have found skulls up there and pieces of bones and thought that maybe they found him, but there's never been anything definitive that they did find him. So let's move on from that. So every day in the paper, this tragic story was being told. Here's the home, or I guess we'd call it a more of an estate. It's called Santanoni Preserve. So you can see how densely that forest was, and of course that water. So if that little boy wandered off from there, within a couple of minutes, it would have been hard to find him. One of the things I did for my research is I went up to that site because I wanted to be in the space where he had gotten lost. I wanted to feel it. Thankfully and wisely, I brought a professional, I call him a professional Adirondack hiker with me. He's a good friend of mine. And but we started out at the preserve. You can go visit that preserve now. It's more of a public space now. Once we started walking into the woods, I was lost within 2 minutes. It was that dense. And thankfully, he was there to kind of guide me and stuff. So it's really understandable how this little boy got lost. So all over central New York, people were reading the newspaper, including this man here. This is Bart Bartholomew. And it was actually Bart's wife, Barbara, who wrote the memoir for the library that summarized this. So that was how I met. But Bart was just a typical Fultonian citizen of central New York. And he said, as his wife explained, every day he read in the paper about this boy and the tragedy of it. And he said, there needs to be something, there needs to be some professional way to search for somebody who's missing, because at that time there were no search and rescue teams. There were no search and rescue teams all up and down the coastline of eastern United States. There were some search and rescue teams in California, and actually the family, they searched for that boy for 40 days. That family was a wealthy family, and they were able to hire and fly from California a search and rescue team to help look for that boy. That's how far they had to go to find a search and rescue team, California. Of course, when California folks got here to try to search, they had never been in the Adirondacks before. They didn't know how to search here. So not only was Bart wise to say, let's start a search and rescue team, let's start a search and rescue team that was unique to central New York, to New York State, to the environment. So he had the idea that he was going to start a search and rescue team. There were no role models to follow. There was no textbook. There was no guide. But he did that, and he started with a newspaper article. And here's the actual newspaper article. Group starts to form land and rescue team. They had it at Bart's house in the backyard. It was a July night. I talked to 3 of the people who were at that first meeting. There were about a dozen people that showed up. And they all said, we are committed to doing this. We're going to do this. And those 12 people or so started the search and rescue team. The next picture I'm going to show you is the picture that came from the 10th anniversary of the founding of the search and rescue team. So we're jumping ahead in time here. But I show that. That's Bart on the right-hand side. You can see it kind of aged a little bit from that 10 years. But there were also women in that first search and rescue team meeting at Bart's house, and also that were involved in the first planning of the search and rescue team. Why they're not in this picture, I don't know. But I had the privilege and honor of interviewing two people plus Bart's wife. The other people had either passed away or I couldn't get a hold of, but I talked to relatives of them. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the gentleman with the beard that's kneeling down is Huey Perro. And then the gentleman on the left, the very far left, is Steve Ives. And I'll tell you a little bit about them. This is Huey. sort of facing us with sort of long sideburns. And he's working with folks on mapping. One of the things that was unique in one of the first chapters of the book is I profile those 12 founders of the search and rescue team. And they each brought a specific talent to the team. Not, it was sort of, it didn't happen, how do I say it? It sort of happened by accident, I guess, that they all had this talent. Huey's talent was mapping. He was a scout, Boy Scout when he was growing up, and he was fascinated by mapping, and of course with search and rescue, mapping and following search trails is very important. So here he is working with, I think, maybe local firefighters or sheriffs on a mapping for a search. This is Norm Hayden. I wasn't able to interview Norm, but I did talk with his wife, I believe. And as you can see, Norm was very involved with the Scouts. And one of the Boy Scouts, one of the things I learned is there was no textbook on search and rescue. There was no training. I know I keep saying that, but I'm trying to emphasize it. What they had to turn to was the Boy Scout handbook, because there was a section in the Boy Scout handbook back in the 1970s that talked about search and rescue and how to search if someone gets lost. That's what they used. So Norm's background as a scout leader certainly helped that. The other thing I found out was once they started training, and I'll talk a little bit about how they trained, a lot of the trainings happened in Norm's, had a huge backyard, and they would use that to kind of set up for their search training. And I mentioned Steve Ives, and this is Steve in the center. And what I wanted to do was read a little bit from my book. If you don't know my style of writing, I tend to look to interview the people that lived the topic that I'm writing about. So for the blizzard of '66, I was able to talk to or hear from about 200 people who lived through that blizzard, and I put through weaving their stories together, I put the book together. And actually, it's Keith, right? Yes. Keith has a picture in my blizzard of '66 book, and he's featured in one of the pictures from that. So that's how I do my research. So I interviewed as many people for this search and rescue book as I could. But I wanted to read something. Steve was very young when he joined the search and rescue. I think he was 22 years old, pretty young to devote really decades of his life in search and rescue. But his motivation for joining the search and rescue team was Steve got lost as a kid. He was playing out in the country where he grew up, and he got lost. And it was frightening. And all he could think about was that little boy in the Adirondacks who, if he was still alive, how frightened he must be. So I wanted to read just a little bit of what Steve told me when he got lost. So this is him talking now. When I was in the middle of those 50 acres, right, 50 acres, I got lost and started to panic. Every branch that I walked through seemed to reach out for me, and it scared me to death. At first, I dragged my bicycle through the brush because I didn't want to lose it, and I didn't want anyone to know I was lost. But after a while, I couldn't pull it anymore, so I just left it behind. I never found the bike, even though I later searched the whole area more times than you can imagine. Finally, I got a hold of myself and spotted the back of a house which faced County Route 6 and realized where I was. I skirted the road all the way down to where I knew my dad would be, and there he was along with my sister, brother, and some cousins. They were all looking for me, searching for me. I told them I wasn't lost, but my face, all puffed up from crying, told other lies. Then he reflects on Douglas Slade. When I first heard about Douglas Slade's search, the 8-year-old me came back. That poor kid, I thought about Douglas. He probably panicked like I did, and I didn't want anyone to have to go through that. It was a very important piece of why I joined the search and rescue, along with the fact that if that had been my son, I wouldn't have been able to pay someone to search for him. And that brings us back to the California search and rescue team. That family paid them a lot of dollars. And from the start, the search and rescue team here that Bart Bartholomew started, it's a volunteer program. You never charge anyone for that searching. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit, but I could talk forever about the training that the search and rescue team did at the beginning and continues to do today. So I'll just show you some pictures. This is something they called man tracking. Do you still call that, Aaron? Do you still use that term? And by the way, I'm referring, this is Aaron Albright, am I saying that right? And Aaron's the current president? President of the search and rescue team. Back when I interviewed Aaron, how many years ago for this book, you were just starting out. And so we're glad that he's here tonight. And he's going to talk a little bit about modern search and rescue for you. But anyway, man tracking is a type of searching that they do where it's pretty specific, as you can see, they're down on the ground looking for clues, for tracks, for things like that. One of the things that amazed me, this is a very early search and rescue team picture, maybe from the 1970s. Those are construction hard hats that they're wearing that I think Niagara Mohawk or maybe one of the nuclear power plants gave them as a donation because they had no money to start out with. They were just all learning as they went along. But you can see sort of a stretcher there. And what they would do is they'd often go to the Adirondacks actually, but they would go to, even in Oswego County, there's plenty of wooded area. They would find an area and hide a mannequin, a dummy, in the forest, and then their goal would be to try to find that and bring that dummy or mannequin out on a stretcher. So, and I mentioned the Adirondacks. That's an Adirondacks fire tower and a lean-to. They would go up into the Adirondacks and search, and sometimes when they searched, they would stay in those lean-tos. It was a great dedication that these people did to try to prepare themselves for those searches because, Douglas Lake, they searched for Douglas 40 days. And that's not highly unusual that they would spend that much time. And so those folks would be away from their families, maybe not for the whole 40 days, but for chunks of time where they would live in lean-tos, sometimes live out of their own truck. Here's a pretty risky rescue method. This is at Stillwater Reservoir. Let's say somebody fell off that cliff and broke their leg or needed to be transported. They were training on how to move those people safely. This is a Huey Perro map. I told you that Huey was a map maker. And I met him at the Oswego Library when I did my interviews. And he's trying to explain how they did their searches. So you want to set up, I think I'll show you. Yeah, here's and by the way, you search all seasons, right? So, you would set up in a line so many feet apart, and then you would walk a certain pathway. So I'll go back to Huey, because I don't understand mapping too well, so Huey took the time to show me how they would sketch that out so people would know the method that they would use for searching. And those people would be searching for any, a piece of clothing, a drop of blood, footsteps, obviously, a broken stick, anything like that would give them some clue where those people. So you can just imagine, look how big that field is, searching that whole area carefully for just the slightest hint or clue. Over the years, the search and rescue team has been involved with some very high profile searches. And depending on how far back your history goes, first one is Jack Blake. And Jack went missing in 1972, the year after Douglas Lake. So the search and rescue team was barely a year old. He was from the Watertown area. I believe they did find that boy's body. The next is Sarah Wood. You might remember Sarah Wood. That was August 1993. And then, of course, Heidi Allen right here in Oswego County. That was 1994. So by that time, the search and rescue team was nearly 25 years old. The search and rescue team took leads on that Heidi Allen search. By that time, they were so well respected and so proficient in their work that they did some of the lead, how to position people, where to search, that sort of thing. I have a chapter in the book that I really enjoyed doing, even though the stories weren't always happy, but I profile about 10 of the most what I call the most exciting searches that the search and rescue team has been on. One of them took them in an ice storm, and not an ice storm, a blizzard storm up into the Adirondacks, where a train had, excuse me, a plane had crashed, and nobody could find any site of that plane, and they were able to locate that. So pretty amazing searches that they've been on, literally hundreds of searches over the years. So what happened is once word got out that this search and rescue team was really professional, of course, the police, sheriffs, firefighters really started treating the search and rescue team as teammates, right? That you're going to help us find the search, because back in the day, before the search and rescue team was well organized, before there was 911, it was the sheriff's responsibility, or the police, depending on where that person went missing. So to have a partner in the Oswego search and rescue team was a good thing. So, and by the way, I sort of skipped is the word pioneer, and my name of my book is Pioneers, the story of the search. They called themselves pioneers. That was the name, and they certainly were pioneers. Yes. Oh, go for it. Yeah.
We brought in Barbara Dix, and I'll explain what Barbara Dix is about. We give every year several awards, and one award we give, very honored one is the Franklin D. Roosevelt Award, which is named for President Roosevelt, who served as a town historian for the town of Hyde Park. You should all know that. If you don't, well, we'll talk to you later. It's given to appointed municipal historians in recognition of outstanding career achievement in the practice of public history in New York State. And this year's recipient is the wonderful Barbara Jenkins, who is historian for the village of Phoenix. She's a former historian for the town of Schroeppel. Did I pronounce that right, Barbara?
No, Schroeppel.
Thank you. Schroeppel and Oswego County. She has been a local historian since 1977. Starting in Schroeppel and Phoenix. She became Oswego County historian in 1990, and she was in that position until 2003. And while she was in that position, she was also the county records management officer and established the county's record storage facility that serves as a model for other counties. She later returned to her positions in Phoenix and later Schroeppel. She recently retired from Schroeppel, but now at 90, she continues to serve as the village of Phoenix historian. And the thing I was wondering about Barbara, when I worked with the New York State Archives, we did our grant review. She was our grant reviewer. And we sit there on the deliberations, and there she would be knitting. Barbara knows that anyway she goes, she knits. That's why we're a little star. She's not knitting right now. And she'd be knitting, and it always made me think of Tales of the City, Madame Defarge. Remember how she would, and then she would undo it as people would, and I also kind of picture her like, okay, we didn't approve that grant, so we're going to unstitch that grant. So I just got such a kick out of it. But Barbara, we're glad to hear that you're still at 90. You're still a historian, and we're sorry you couldn't make it down, but we're kind of thrilled that we managed to work this out. And so the award is going to be brought to you by Debbie Allen. Yeah, if we got to hold it up here.
Over by her, so we can get her in the picture.
No, I don't think we can. We'll get it here on the other. Oh, I have to do it here. Oh, okay. Clearly, this is the most professional award we ever get.
I love it.
Barbara, my favorite word. Go ahead and talk, Barbara.
I just love it.
Well, it's well deserved, Barbara. We're really happy that you're being honored with this award, and thrilled that you're going to tell us this encourage you to continue on.
I'd like the two of you to introduce yourself to my audience here.
I'm Ray Lefevre. I'm a past president of AFNIC and chair of the award committee. I'm John Shear.
John Shearer?
John
Wonderful.
was the only historian alive before you, Barbara. I don't know.
I think so. We're the two oldest ones, John. Thank you, John.
You got me beat by 1 year.
Oh, really? I don't have a white mustache, certainly.
And I don't have to finish.
No, you don't.
I always wanted to learn, though.
Well, I'll teach you anytime.
Okay, maybe the next meeting,
Yeah,
next year.
if it's closer to home.
Carol McKenna is here too, remember?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Hi, Carol.
She said, Carol, thanks. Okay. Anything else you want to say, Ron?
I just want to say thank you. I was just blown away when I heard about it. Never in this world thought I was going to get anything like that. And I appreciate all the work we went through to try to put this here when we were having our historical society meeting tonight. And you're having your dinner tonight. So we did a pretty good job, I guess. Thank you.
You did a wonderful job with presentation and we'll do better next time.
Okay, thank you so much. Bye now.
Anything else?
No?
Congratulations, and you'll get the actual award from Deb in due course.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, Thursday is the meeting, you just said.
Okay.
We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Dad.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Nice job.
You're welcome. Quick Barbara Dix story. I've had the opportunity to work with Barbara Dix when I was writing the book about muck farms of Oswego County. She uncovered what we think is the first muck farm in Oswego County, information about it. So I know the value of Barbara's history work. I benefited from it. So one more round of applause for Barbara. Okay, so what I was talking about was the respect that the Oswego County pioneer started to gain throughout New York State, right? And remember, no other search and rescue teams were formed in New York State and really northeastern United States along the eastern seaboard. So what happened was they started getting called for searches farther and farther from home, okay? So downstate, into other states, Pennsylvania, Ohio, nearby states. And so the founders, Bart and the others, thought what we need to do is to help others learn how to do search and rescue. And they developed a training program that helped other search and rescue teams be founded. And this is an old photograph, but I'm sure it's no way representative of all the search and rescue teams in New York State. But from whenever this map was done, these were the search and rescue teams that were formed much with the help of Oswego County. So they really became role models for other search and rescue teams. When Aaron says a few words, I'm sure Aaron will talk about the modern trainings that happen. And I know there's a couple people here that have taken those trainings. I'm looking at you, Dennis Merlino, right? Dennis? Dennis is somebody. Anybody else taken the training? And you okay? And you are, sir?
Rob Gray. I'm a new recruit. I just graduated.
Oh, he just graduated. Great. And someone else? Yes? Your name? Okay, when did you take the training? 2021. That's awesome. So, maybe after Aaron's done talking, if you folks want to talk a little bit about the training. So I'll keep moving on here. And so, again, the respect for the team. That was the original patch that was made. So once you were part of the official search and rescue team, You got that patch, I guess you put it on your shirt or your hat, I'm not exactly sure, that was designed by one of the original search and rescue teams. And I believe that's the more current pin that is used, that search and rescue team members get. So searches, training happen in all situations. One of the things that I was honored to do and I learned so much from was I got to attend a day of training at Happy Valley. I think we were at Happy Valley, and watched them conduct their trainings. Very thorough, quite interesting. And so I want to talk a little bit about how search and rescue has modernized over the years. And again, I think Aaron can speak more about that. But from when I wrote this book in 2015, 16, some of the things that had happened over the years was something they called infrared photography. So a helicopter would search for something, and there was some sort of photography that they used that could identify a warm body, and it would light up something on their screen or come show it out in the photograph, and that would help them narrow the area that they would search, starting with a helicopter. I know that today they use drones and other tracking devices. GPS, of course, is huge. We just have to remember, I remember the founders telling me that what they really had was a compass, right? They had a compass and maps, maybe, and that was what they used for their searches, and it's so much more different now. This is Roger Fox on the left, sitting down. Roger was a member of the team when I wrote the book, and you could see him there with a computer, and I thought it was a good representative because Roger really modernized the search. Some of these folks that were in the original search and rescue team, they were kind of old-fashioned, kind of old school, and so computers was something that Roger brought to their training. You can imagine how much that helped them in their experiences. This is their command support unit. Fascinating. I think I interviewed you, Aaron, in the command unit when I first met you out to Camp Hollis. They were doing training out there. But Aaron will tell you more about this, but it's just equipped with everything you would need to conduct a search, computer-wise and map-wise, supply-wise, and that's something that through their fundraising and grants they've been able to get to, they take out on their searches. This is Sue Fox, this is Roger's wife, and I want to mention a program that she helped develop. It was called Wood Smart, and one of the ideas was prevention, right? You know, you want to search for people when they're lost, but you also want to give people skills so they don't get lost. And I'm not sure if the team still does this, but back when I was interviewing, they did a program called Wood Smart. They go into the schools and talk about what do you do if you get lost, what happens if you don't know where you are, those kinds of things. And the two girls that are in the picture with Sue are two girls that were in a class that Sue led, and a month or so later, they were playing and they got lost. And they remember, I think one of the things they talked about was you stay in the spot that you're in, you don't start wandering around trying to find, stay where you are, and someone will come find you. And as Sue explained, the two girls were so excited to tell her after they were found, we remembered what you told us from Wood Smart. So a good success story from that program. It was a real privilege to interview some of the the founding and current members of the search and rescue team. This picture is from the Fulton Library. We met there one day and talked for 3 or 4 hours. Huey Perro in the right seated. Jim Krombeck from our group and his wife Nancy were members. I know Jim's going to speak a little bit after I introduce Aaron. And a few other, Huey's wife Barb Perro was part of the original team, and that's Barb Bartholomew between Barb Perro and Roger Fox, who gave me the original story. That was Bart's wife. So one of the things, I learned so much from this experience, and it was such a really moving experience for me to write this book. was one day Roger and Steve Ives, and you can see, I'm not sorry, not Roger, Huey on the right, and Steve is in the center, two founding members. They wanted to take me to Stillwater Reservoir to meet a forest ranger, because part of the work that they did was with the forest ranger, and they wanted me to just talk with him. But something happened on the way up that just stuck with me, and I want to read a little bit. So I don't think Huey and Steve had been up to that area in years, but we all rode up in the car together, and Huey had this amazing mind. By the way, it was his 80th birthday. We went up on his 80th birthday. It just turned 80, and just a spring chicken, right, Barbara? But just still sharp, and he knew all the roads. He knew how to get there. But here's something that I'll read from the book here. This is me talking. I was able to appreciate the value of this road trip with these pioneer founders before we even reached Stillwater Reservoir. There was a spot on our travel route that Huey was anxious to show me. As we traveled the roadway, he told me about a tombstone we'd be passing that he wanted me to see. Just east of Lowville, Huey explained, there's a marker of a burial spot for a search victim from the 1800s, a little boy named Nathaniel Tripp. As I expected, Huey knew the exact road to turn off and even how far I'd have to drive to find the marker. Within sight of the road, we spotted a neatly mowed area, and in it, a foot-high headstone, a perfect height for a 9-year-old boy. It memorializes. We gathered around it, struggling to make out its inscription, but the stone was too worn to read. Somehow, however, it uncovered a memory for Steve. I once attended a search and rescue training, this is Steve Ives talking now, sponsored by forest rangers, and a slideshow portion of the program opened with a photograph of this headstone. I remember the ranger saying, "This is why we do search and rescue, so we never have to bury another child who finds themselves lost." The four of us stood quietly for a moment. Huey knelt down, gently touching the stone. So that's sort of the end of my program. I thought I'd end with this picture to illustrate not only is it a commitment, a volunteer commitment, a time, but also a risk. When you go out, I remember talking to several of the search and rescue team members. When you go out to search, you have the potential to become a search victim yourself. If you're not careful, you can get lost. So these people who volunteered literally decades of their life are to be commended. This was a book I self-published. I work with a publishing company now called History Press. So my more recent books, they design the cover, they design the promotion. But when you self-publish, you have to figure out your own. So I was trying to figure out, what do I use for a cover for this book? How do you explain 50 years of search and rescue? So I took this is an old training photo. You can see them with their construction hats on from Niagara Mohawk, kind of coming out of the woods to the clearing. If the picture's a little blurry, and I kind of like that because it sort of takes us back in time. And then I created the cover from that. So I think I'm going to end the program there. That's some information about me if you want to talk to me more later on, or my website. But I'd like to formally introduce Aaron Albright. And Aaron is the current president of the search and rescue team. And Aaron's going to maybe fill us in a little bit about, since I've written the book, or how things are with the search and rescue team now. And then we'll open it up to a few of the search and rescue team members. So, thank you.
The search and rescue team now is just as strong, I would say probably as strong as it's ever been. We have 39 members now. We just got 12 new members this year. And the way we bring on new members now, we have an 88-hour training academy that lasts 4 months. So similar to how firefighters could take like a initial firefighter 1 class or something like that. to go to structure fires or rescues. We do a similar thing, and that brings all of our searchers up to speed and ready for just about anything that's thrown at them from the start. We continue to search with DEC forest rangers, and a lot of their standards are implemented throughout our training, include navigation, radio communications, CPR, AED, wilderness first aid, search tactics.
You have drones?
I'm sorry?
You have drones?
Yes, yep. And today we have resources. We can track our members live in the field from our mobile command post. We have drones. Just recently, we've kind of picked up our canine program again, so we have a trailing bloodhound on our team, and we also have another dog that's certified in wilderness recovery. So we've really added some capabilities in just the last few years. Search and rescue is always changing, and the pioneers really are still really some of the leaders in the state when it comes to new search tactics or new technology. We embrace that, and we've kept it going. Nowadays, there's he showed a map with some of the different teams, and they're part of the New York State Federation of Search and Rescue Teams, which many of our founders helped put together in 1974, and now there's 26 search and rescue teams across New York State that are part of this federation. And when there's a larger scale search, even just this last weekend, we had members head up to Saranac, up in the Adirondacks, looking for a gentleman that was missing. And we helped forest rangers and state police locate that person. So we still go to the Adirondacks, we still travel around the state, and on average we're called about 40, 45 times a year for different searches, and probably about a dozen of those turn into full-scale boots on the ground, several teams in the field searching.
Yeah, and one of the things that when I was writing the book, you think with modern technology, everybody's got a cell phone, GPS, drones, that people don't get lost anymore, right? But there was a situation where an elderly gentleman had wandered off, and a couple months had gone by, and they still hadn't found him or found his body. So, even though we have modern technology, people still tend to wander off, and you said about 45 calls a year, or 45 times that.
Yeah. So, some of the demographics or subject profiles have changed a little bit. It used to be every fall you could bet your paycheck that you were going after a hunter in Happy Valley, and you were going after a hunter in the Cicero Swamp. Not so much anymore. I think the people that hunt are serious about it and have the technology. Our number one and number two subject profiles that we go after, or we go looking for these days, are folks with dementia, Alzheimer's, or the younger generation that are autistic. So that's kind of how search and rescue's changed a little bit. We still go after, or go looking for outdoor enthusiasts, but those numbers aren't quite as high as they used to be.
Yeah. So I'm going to introduce other members, and then Aaron, you'll stick around, right? And maybe people have questions. So I want to start with Dennis, because Dennis, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you joined the team because you read the book. Is that correct?
That's true, Jim. I
I've known Jim for a long time. He's written a lot of books, and I've been following him almost at Fulton Public Library also. And his books always were fascinating. And when I saw search and rescue, I didn't know that there was a search and rescue in the area. I had no idea. And all of a sudden, about 3 months later, Aaron put an ad in the paper saying, hey, if you're interested in search and rescue, we're putting on a class. And little did I know, it turned out to be one of the greatest adventures of my life. I spent all my childhood in the woods. You know, you just lived in the woods, and that's what you did. You know, you come home when it gets dark, and you're home at 6 o'clock, but the rest of the day, either on a ball field or in the woods. And little did I know that my skills were primitive. I thought I was all that until I met Aaron and the team, and wow, what an advanced group. There was so much to learn. When they say 80 hours of training, no, we're talking 200 hours of training. There's so much to learn. It was fascinating. Thank you, Jim, for introducing me to search and rescue. And you know, the team is just a big family now. Everybody relies on with their lives on everybody else, and it's a great group of trust and skill. Each person is up to speed. One anecdote, that as soon as I finished the search and rescue training, we finished in August, I believe, of our year. It was a pandemic year, it got stretched out. And September, I went on my first search, and a forest ranger was doing the sign-ins at a desk in a fire hall, a big room, and she says, oh, who are you with? I said, Oswego County Search and Rescue. And she said, oh, you're a crew boss. I said, I just got here, I don't know anything. And she put me in charge of a group of sheriffs. That was my first day. And she said, so what? We know your skills. You passed the academy. We know your skills. We know what you're capable of. Take this team. And it was a successful search.
Great story. Thank you for bringing that point up again. Probably the most respected search and rescue team in New York State, I would say, would be the Oswego County team. Thank you, Dennis. I'm sorry I'm forgetting names, but you just took the training. Any thoughts? And
It was pretty comprehensive. It's like Dennis said, I spend every weekend I'm out in the woods. Me and my dog are wandering around. I actually came across these guys doing training a few times when I'm out. You know, I'm out in Winona Forest, and there's a bunch of people on snowshoes marching around, and it's like, what are you guys doing? Oh, we're search and rescue training. And at the end, I saw something in the news that they were looking for recruits, and it's, you know, it sounded interesting, something to do. So
yeah, great.
But unfortunately, I haven't been able to go out on any searches yet, but you know, the time will come.
Yeah.
I'm surprised, Aaron, you didn't mention anything about Project Lifesaver with any of that. And I was just going to say that a lot of the searches with that program is we get the call out, and within a half hour, you know, people are called off. They found it. You know, they found the subject. So
Yes. So they have a tracking device that.
Yeah. So since 2010 in our county, we have the Project Lifesaver, and what that is, it's a radio transmitting bracelet, like a watch, and the subject will wear it on their ankle or on their arm, and each person has a unique frequency. It's not GPS, you know, nobody's watching your every movement, but it's a radio frequency. If your loved one does go lost, we have a receiver, kind of looks like we're holding like a TV antenna type thing up, and we can tune that to that person's frequency, and we can pick up, the signal, and we can head in that direction. And as we get closer, we can really just hone in on the location of the lost subject. And the average find time is a half hour, and it has 100% success rate. And statistics show that in the first, if you can find the person in the first 24 hours, you'll find them alive. After 24 hours, half of the subjects that go missing are found deceased. So time is really the essence here.
Thank you.
I do have brochures if anybody wants to know more about that program before we.
My husband had the ankle bracelet,
Yes.
and thank God he didn't need it for anything, but the government, the Army would supply it for him.
Yes, there's several programs. Office for the Aging is helping with it. The VA medical is helping with it. Or for the younger generation, there's help for it. So.
And I think you brought a scrapbook too of the early years?
Yes, I brought a scrapbook 1971 to 94 or something, with a bunch of newspaper clippings and pictures and stuff.
Great. All right, we'll finish up here and then people can mingle. Ma'am, did you want to say?
Just really quickly, I too, Dennis, saw the ad, the advertisement, and was enthralled. And I was in the academy after Dennis. It was the 2022 academy, and I think at the informational meeting, I bought your book and read it and was fascinated with it. So I hope I get your autograph tonight. But it is a great organization. The training is phenomenal. We have a lot of people that go into volunteering their time to teach us. And it is feast or famine. It always come in hot and heavy at times, and then nothing for weeks. So, it's nice to be part.
I'd like to end with Jim Kronbeck, because Jim goes way back. And you saw his picture, he's you weren't at the first meeting, right, Jim?
No, I wasn't a charter member.
But tell us a little bit about your early
Well,
experience.
first, very brief personal history. Got married early, very young, 1972. And October 3rd of 73, our son was born. And I kind of had a personal panic attack with the realization that I'm not responsible for this little baby. And I don't know any first aid, I don't know anything. And so I signed up for a local first aid course that was being taught up in Fulton. And I went in, and there's a couple of guys that were 10, 15 or so years older than me teaching it. Turned out to be Art and Huey were teaching the first aid course.
Wow.
And so within probably the second week, they managed to recruit me into the team. And my wife and I were both very active in it all through the middle 70s. And the team was 2 years old when we joined, but it was still in its early days, its infancy in a lot of ways. And we were still learning things constantly, getting involved in other activities. That was when they had a inner tube run down the Salmon River every year. And so the county and Niagara Mohawk was opened the floodgates to run the water down their river. They put the pioneers to work acting as security and safety and rescue to a bunch of half-drunken fools that were running down the river in inner tubes. We got heavily involved in rope and rescue work. Unfortunately, my wife's not here tonight, but if she was, she could tell you about rappelling off of Salmon River Falls when she was about 20 years old. Even in the early days, the pioneers were the pioneer team in New York State. as you mentioned, as they would search in other areas, local people would show an interest, and Bart, Huey, Steve, a lot of these guys would work intensely with local people from Lewis County, from Cattaraugus. At the time that I changed jobs and started doing a crazy shift work and ended up dropping out of the Pioneers because of my schedule, which was 1977, there were 5 teams in the Federation. But even at that point, the Oswego County team was kind of looked at as the head team in the state. And I'm thrilled to see how much you've grown, how much search and rescue in general has grown, and what a fantastic job you're doing.
Yeah. All right, so yes, the books are here, and one of the great things, I received a grant to write this book. So I turned the book over to the search and rescue team, so every penny you pay for the book goes to help the search and rescue team. So just keep that in mind. My other books are here too. They're either $15 or $20. You can come on up if you want to see that, or just come up and chat. You don't have to buy a book, just come on up and chat. Talk with Aaron some more, look at the scrapbook. Anything else you want to say before we close off here?
No, is it all right to turn the air back on?
Yeah, and it looks like there's refreshments, right?
Yeah.
All right, thank you again.